Hello, everybody, and welcome into our Stanley Cup Final preview here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and I'm joined in by a couple guys that have been on this preview. Brian, you've been here the whole time. Matt, you're returning from the Eastern Conference Final preview. Matt, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's we're into the final series, and it's a rematch from last year, so we'll see how it all goes. And Brian, how's it going?
Hey, good to see you again, Matthew. It's we've had a lot of fun here these last few weeks, eh?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's the same as last year, right? I had you the whole time, and we've got let's jump in with this because it is the same but different. We got two teams that by like Oilers, Panthers. It is a rematch, but there is some new faces on both sides, and it's going to be interesting to see how the difference of the Oilers changing their personnel. We'll talk about each of their categories that they're kind of maybe different in. But before we do that, we got to talk about the last series. And I'll start with you, Matt, with the Eastern Conference Final. I didn't end up being as close as we thought on our preview. We were saying that, it's going to go to 7. It's going to go a long series. No, it ended up being pretty one-sided. The Panthers 5-game win, and most of them were pretty handily won. What'd you think about that series? Were you surprised of how much that the Panthers actually were just the better team?
Yeah, I'm not totally surprised that the Panthers ended up winning, but yeah, I was completely betting on the Hurricanes to be much more competitive that series. Was not expecting the Panthers to be as dominant as they were, especially in games 1 and 2. It sort of just seemed like Panthers found another gear early on and sort of stuck with it until they didn't. I think I had a 7 either way. Wouldn't have been surprised with the Panthers or the Hurricanes, but man, that was I was not expecting that level of domination pretty much the whole time except for 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know if the Hurricanes were just kind of maybe overwhelmed with. I don't know. It really can't. It's kind of it's tough to gauge why it actually happened that way. Frederik Andersen wasn't as good as he was in the past few series where he was pretty much unstoppable or unbeatable. And then ended up their first game, he was lit up, and that's and ended up being that they put in Pyotr Kochetkov for a game, and he got lit up too. So it's not like it went back to Andersen. He was kind of better, but they still ended up losing. So it's like it was an interesting way of that series was so one-sided. I thought it was more competitive. But the Panthers just ended up being the better team. Brian, for the Oilers, we were saying a 7-game series too, but it ended up being a 5-gamer as well. And then that the Oilers were kind of maybe not as dominant as the Panthers were over the Hurricanes, but there were times where you're like, yeah, they are the way better team here. And ended up winning in different ways. They were winning high-scoring ones. They were winning the low-scoring ones. And, of course, that's going to come up of a difference in the team. But what did you think about that Western Conference Final?
Yep, definitely shorter than I expected. I might as well. It's on tape, so I might as well admit it. I picked the Stars to win in 7, right? So it did not go as long as I expected, and the team that I expected to win didn't come out on top. So I think, Matthew, though, like it was, especially after game 1, I found it really surprising. The Oilers, they lost game 1 on a single period, basically, right? Yeah. They just pretty much like a terrible 5-minute stretch cost them that game. But still, after that game, I thought that Dallas had really seized momentum. And I just think, and I know we'll get into this, but I just think it speaks to the experience, the poise and confidence of this Oilers team now that's really become apparent throughout this playoff run, that they were able to just flush that. And just from that point on, they dominated might be too strong of a word, but you know what? They played, I thought, textbook playoff hockey in game 2, got the series evened up at 1-1, and then just took care of business at home. With a couple pretty dominant performances, and that was that. So, really close to, not quite dominant, but definitely close to it, and they just seem to have the Stars number, which is pretty funny for those of us of a certain age here in Edmonton who used to remember getting pummeled every spring by that team.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the thing is about the Stars too, I was really surprised in Game 5 how much they didn't seem to come to play. When you're looking at, the Oilers came out like on fire and built that 3-0 lead and chased Ottinger really quickly. And that was, of course, a surprising change where they switched it to Smith so early.
Yeah. I mean, Game 5 is a story unto it. It's a whole chapter unto itself, right? With the drama with Ottinger and everything. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. We might have to do a whole entire episode on that, what happened there in that alone, but you're right.
Yeah. So we'll see how this one goes. But let's jump into this rematch now. I mean, Oilers Panthers we're looking at the same deal as we did last year. But like I said, these are two different teams. The Panthers have the same types of core guys still, but they did add some names. They added, and we'll start on the offense. And that's Brad Marchand being the biggest addition. Playoff veteran, a past guy that just knows how to win in the playoffs and knows how to score in the playoffs. Still only has one Stanley Cup though. So, I mean, that was 14 years ago now. And it's going to be interesting to see if that, and then also you got Corey Perry on the other side, 22 years since he's won a cup, and how many finals has he been in since then? So we'll start on who really, I'll start with you, Brian. Who do you think has the edge in the forward group? And you can mention some matchups. You can mention whatever you want about this, the Oilers offense going into this one, because we've talked about the depth in the past in previews where kind of stepped up. They still got their stars in McDavid and Draisaitl, who also put up the points. Who do you think has the edge, if any? I mean, or is it really even? What do you see here?
I'm going to, you know what? It's kind of a default to say you always give the edge to the team that has arguably the two best forwards in the game, in Draisaitl and McDavid. So I think I would go with that. But I think, and you touched on this, it's the depth now with the Oilers, right? So they have their big guns, but they're getting the support scoring too. Now, that said, they're going to miss Hyman. They're really, really, really going to miss Hyman. And he's been such an incredible contributor to their playoff run, their success this year. And he kind of is almost like I guess kind of like in a nutshell defines how the Oilers have won this year. Like, he's a guy who was known in the past for having these, I think he scored 16 goals in the playoffs last year. I think he had 11 or 12 a couple years prior to that. I think he only ended up with 5 goals in the playoffs, but it was his two-way play, his physicality, that just made things happen for the Oilers this year. So that's a big thing. They're really going to miss him. And the effects throughout the lineup, because we talked about the depth, but you take him out, and now that he comes off the top line, and now everything, the sort of the trickle down or the trickle up effect, I guess, if you will, could impact how the bottom six plays. So we'll see. I'm intrigued to see what kind of line matchups Knobloch comes out with now, given the absence of Hyman. And how much they'll draw upon what they took away from the matchups and how they played out 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's an interesting way, and I'll mention it on the defense once we get there, but is how the depth is something that's, they added Vasily Podkolzin, who's been a pretty big part of that bottom six. I've been really, I don't know, I don't want to say surprised, because I knew he was probably going to bring this in the playoffs at some point. I never got the chance in Vancouver. He played 2 games last year, wasn't given a lot of ice time, so he didn't really have a lot of time to show what he can do. But in the playoffs, he's been great. I mean, I think he's now the leading hits behind Hyman. In the playoffs, he's got over 70 hits, and that's something that he did bring in the regular season as well. Just one of those guys is just so good on the forecheck, so physical. And in a series like this against the Panthers, I think he's going to end up being a pretty big key to it.
He is the prototypical playoff player, really, if you think about it, right? Like, you talk about all these kind of intangibles and X factors, and those are the things that really come to the forefront at this time of year. And you know what? He hasn't. I think he has one goal in the entire playoffs, but no one sat there and said like, "Oh, he's not contributing or he's not making an impact." Right? Like he is really it's the bigger picture with him. And I think we've talked a few times about him. I remember during the other season preview, you and I were talking about what you had seen in him when he was in Vancouver, and that potential wasn't maybe realized, or maybe he wasn't given the opportunity to realize it and fulfill it. And no, he's, you need those kind of guys in the playoffs, and he has been a huge component for this team. And he's going to be even more so now with Hyman out of the lineup.
Yeah, and especially with how the Panthers, their depth and everyone on that team is so physical. He's going to be a key part of it for sure.
Yeah.
Matt, we're speaking about the Panthers. I mean, they are a very physical team, and they've got such great forechecking, and they've shown it not just this playoffs, but previous ones. Who do you think has the edge in the forward group? They are dealing with, Sam Reinhart did return, but is he 100%? We'll never know until the end of the playoffs. They probably have other guys that are banged up. I don't think Matthew Tkachuk is at his best, hasn't been at his best yet. What do you see with this for the offense?
Yeah, I agree. On paper, I think it's a lot more even, but hockey's not played on paper. I think I'm going to give the Oilers a little bit more than a slight advantage, even without Hyman, especially if Connor Brown comes back. That guy's been having a absolute playoff run himself. But with the Panthers, I agree. Sam Reinhart being back should have some sort of impact. I don't think he's 100%. It's going to be interesting to see if Tkachuk also kind of turns it on a little bit. I know he's a big fan of playing the Oilers, especially in the playoffs. So, I think the Panthers they're going to be firing on all cylinders, but I don't know how much that's going to hold a candle compared to Draisaitl and McDavid. So.
Sure. I mean, the thing is, you're looking at the matchups. I mean, Barkov is probably going to be matched against, depending on they load up a top line or, they split them up, whatever it is. But you're looking at that third line with, Lundell, Luostarinen, and Marchand, who's been a really key factor. It could be a matchup line as well. If they do split Draisaitl and McDavid, you put, Barkov against one and Lundell's line against the other. That could be something. And even going with Sam Bennett, Tkachuk's line, which has also been, that line's been really good. Rodriguez has been out as well, right? So, there's another guy that may not be 100%. But on the Oilers side, you're looking at that too. There's the guys that Draisaitl's been kind of rumored that he might be playing hurt too. He's always playing hurt though. Seems like he's always
he's always rumored to be playing hurt. So yeah.
Just that I don't think he's ever 100% in the playoffs because he plays so hard. But it's going to be interesting to see these matchups because there's very even. It's going to be, I think, some certain players that may tip the scales when we get into it. So it's going to be interesting to see throughout this series. Well, moving to the defense, and I think this is where the biggest difference is on the Oilers side. And Brian, what do you think about this? Two guys I think have made a big difference in this, and that's Jake Wallman and John Klingberg coming in. And Klingberg, of course, took a little time to kind of acclimate himself, coming back from being off for so long, but he's really made a difference. So what do you think? The guys being added, and then, of course, the guys being gone in Cody Ceci and, Desharnais. Broberg is a good puck mover, so he probably wasn't part of the problem. But what do you think about this defense? Do the Oilers have an edge maybe with their additions, or is it more even? The Panthers still have a really good, very offensively oriented defense in these playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Panthers defensive core, and I think they've really shown themselves. We've had a few guys on that blue line that have really stepped up in these playoffs, and I'm sure Matt will speak to that. From the Oilers' perspective, a lot of it depends, I think, on Ekholm. What we're going to see. What I don't know, and again, it's like, everyone's playing hurt this time of year. You never know how banged up they are. The whole thing around his injury has been so mysterious from going back to when he first got hurt, came back, played like 2 shifts, got hurt again. So we really don't know what the full story is with this. So I'm, he is, when he is at his best or at 100%, he is the Oilers' number one defenseman. In my opinion, he's the best defenseman on the team anyway. And so whatever he brings is going to be a huge impact to this team. The fact that they've been able to do what they've done without him, a lot of the other blue liners have really stepped up and played better defensively than they have, especially after a tough start to the series against LA. I can't even remember the last time Evan Bouchard made a glaring error, which is like incredible. Yeah. It's usually like 4 or 5 every week. And like he has just played, his defensive play has just 180 here in these last 2 series. And like in that same spirit, Klingberg, we didn't see a lot of him here during the regular season. He came back for when he first got signed. He played a few games and got hurt again, and finally came back in the first round of the playoffs. And he's been a pleasant surprise because he's had the reputation of a very good offensive defenseman, but a guy who can also be a bit of a trouble for his own team and his own end. And he's really not been that. He's played pretty solid. Like, I'm glad you pointed them out. And then, Wallman as well. So, Cody Ceci was a big part of this team last year. I think they've been able to fill his void. And now it's like I say, this defensive core has really, really stepped up their game the last couple of rounds. Now we'll see what the addition of Ekholm can bring. But I'm still leaning towards giving the edge to Florida.
It is. I say it's very, very thin edge, and that was such a difference from last year. You could say the Panthers definitely had the best defense over the Oilers because, I think a big part of it was their puck movement, and that's the difference in this one. And they're not going to be stuck in their own zone as often because Wallman and Klingberg can get the puck out either by passing it out or skating it out. When you're looking at guys like Desharnais, I mean, maybe Cody Ceci as well. They weren't as good at that point. So the Panthers could pounce on that, no pun intended, pounce on that and keep them in their own zone. And that I think might not happen as often. We'll see. But I think having those two guys, and now every pairing is good at moving the puck out of their own zone. So they're not going to be stuck. And even if one of the guys have to go out, you get put in Troy Stetcher, who's also been really good throughout these playoffs. And in the time he had to come in, I think he only just played 6 games. But comes in and very quiet and a good puck mover too. So I think the Oilers defense it's a lot different and I think better this time. So for me, I'm giving the Oilers maybe a little bit of an edge on this, but Panthers are still they've just been able to show again the offense. And I'll turn that over to you, Matt, and not just the defensive side, but I think they might be the top team in the playoffs on defense scoring, because a lot of the guys have goals. So, and even guys that you're not expecting to have goals. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give the edge to the Panthers also. I do think the Oilers have much better competency when it comes to depth on their defense. With the Panthers, we've got Ovis Spilinskis and Jacob Megna, who are both kind of in-betweener level guys. But I guess the story for the Panthers defense, especially last round, was Nico Mikkola. I think that guy was really key in how badly the Panthers were able to dominate the Hurricanes. Namely, the game that he was out was the game that the Hurricanes ended up winning, because I think he was incredibly effective and insanely good at shutting down the Hurricanes, but also scoring. I mean, I wasn't really ever expecting Mikkola to have the career resurgence he's had in Florida, let alone become like a pretty solid 2-way offensive defenseman. On the other side of that coin, though, you've got a guy like Gustav Forsling, who made some pretty glaringly awful mistakes in that series against Carolina. In general, this playoffs for him, he hasn't really been the guy he was last year and the guy he has been all throughout the regular season. But with Seth Jones kind of stepping in and taking a lot of that offensive responsibility from him, I think that's kind of evened the scales a little bit. but just with the top four specifically, with Jones, Ekblad, Mikkola, and Forsling, that alone I think would be enough. But again, it kind of, for me, the issue comes down to the depth. If one of the Panthers defensemen, even if it's Forsling or Mikkola, end up injured again or missing more time, they just don't have that level of replacement in their depth at all for that.
And I think that is definitely something. And, the Panthers have had, of course, Mikkola had to miss that one game. It's great that it wasn't a big injury, because he has been huge in these playoffs. And he's a guy, I think, maybe a bit of a coming out party, because I don't know. I knew he was on the team last year, but I definitely know he's on the Panthers now after this. And I'm sure the Rangers are regretting trading him. But yeah, it's been a really good playoffs for him, and even for Seth Jones, I think, coming in from the Blackhawks, and he's showing more of what he was in Columbus than what he was in Chicago. Of course, being around a way better team. So I think that also makes a big difference for sure. All right, moving to big question, and that's the goaltending. Stuart Skinner, of course, Sergei Bobrovsky has played the whole playoffs. He hasn't had to be pulled, or did he? Did he get pulled once? No, he didn't. So he's been in the net for the whole time. Stuart Skinner, on the other hand, has been up and down. Although he has been more consistent lately. Of course, Calvin Pickard had to come in for 6, had won all 6. But Brian, what do you think about this matchup? I think it's a bit closer now when you're looking at Skinner, his performance, especially if you get the Skinner from the last maybe series in a bit. What do you think about this goaltending matchup this time around?
Yeah, it depends on what. Well, I think you got to give the edge to Bobrovsky either way, but it really depends on what Skinner you're going to get.
Yeah.
How close that gap can be, because that's really, he can be the difference maker for this team, for the Oilers. We saw that, I thought he played pretty well especially towards the latter part of the series last year in the Stanley Cup Final against the Panthers. So, we've seen this from him before, but there's nothing really too insightful I can provide you about this, other than it's just like, this is just, I think now at this point in his career, having seen a few seasons of him, that we know this is just who Stuart Skinner is, and he's going to have his blips. And if you're the Oilers, you're hoping that blip doesn't hit at any point over the next 7 or however many games it may be. So, but Bobrovsky is one of the greatest in the game right now. So even if Skinner is on top of his game for the series, I think I still have to give the edge to Florida.
Yeah, I think, I do agree. I think the edges, or the gap, is going to be much tighter if Skinner performs as he's been with a bunch of shutouts and whatever he's had. And then the losses, I think the wins and the losses are such a huge difference in goals against average, save percentage. It's like 2 different goalies. Well,
when he's on, and when he's not, he's not.
That there's no, it's black and white. There's no in between with Skinner, that's for sure. So yeah, I think he's ended up being, like I say, the last bunch of games he's been really good. So just hope that that's what he's going to be doing in the net for Oilers fans for sure. Matt, I know you're probably going to say that Bobrovsky has the edge, but I know you've mentioned in the past with him is that he's been a little inconsistent with his performance. It's been good, and that's probably all you really need from him. But do you think he needs to be amazing in this series for them to win the cup again?
I think it's going to take a pretty amazing goalie to play and be successful against, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I will say that I like Bob's performance much better in the round against the Hurricanes as opposed to the Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs, I don't think had stabilized yet. He looked great against Tampa Bay for the most part. I think Toronto gave him a little bit of shock once he was up against guys like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, the core 4 in Toronto. I think we might end up seeing a little bit of that shock again, just because it's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But if he can sort of lock in and be stable as he was against the Hurricanes, I think it's much closer than last year. I think you're both absolutely right in that, both because Skinner has kind of shown that he can be the guy. Bobrovsky has shown that as he ages, his consistency and like playoff Bob is sort of not as, lights out every single night as he used to be. It's definitely close. I'm also going to agree and give the edge to the Panthers, but if the Oilers can manage to throw him off of his game and give him, really hard time, especially games 1, 2, and 3, we have little to nothing to go back up to. Vitek Vanacek, serviceable in the regular season for the most part, but I think for the Oilers side, like Pickard has showed that he's more than capable, at least more so than Vitek Vanacek. So it's going to be interesting. I do give the edge slightly to the Panthers, though.
I think with the Oilers, I don't think Knobloch's going to be as quick with putting Pickard in because he hasn't played in a long time now. And he's coming off an injury. I think you give Skinner that chance to bounce back if he does have a bad game. I think that's Knobloch's actually done that. It's after a few bad performances, he kind of thinks, okay, maybe we'll have a change. I don't think that will happen unless he has all of a sudden the Panthers just blow him up for 8 goals or something. That might change, but I think it's Skinner's net right now, and we'll see how it goes. But
it would take, I think, 2 really, really bad back-to-back games, like games 1 and 2, they just get their doors blown off for that switch to happen. Because you're right, he's been out since I want to say I think it's going on to close to 4 weeks since he's played. So and you don't have you can't send him down to Bakersfield now at this time of year, right? To get a couple games in to get back into the groove. So you're spot on with that. I don't think we'll see Skinner give, at least not in the starting spot anyway.
For sure. Yeah. We'll see how this matchup goes. I think that's going to be an interesting one to see how the goaltending goes. All right. Let's, anything else you guys want to talk about? Storylines, matchups, players to watch we haven't mentioned yet. I'll start with you, Matt. Anything else you want to come? There's so many things. We already had bunches of articles written. There's such a big gap between the end of the conference finals into this game 1. So lots have been talked about, but anything else you want to kind of highlight?
For as far as players to watch is concerned, I think Carter Verhaeghe is making strides, getting back to where he used to be last playoffs. We had talked briefly about how he's sort of had kind of a down year. That's really translated into the playoffs, especially versus Tampa Bay and Toronto. He kind of got his game together a little bit versus the Hurricanes. I think he either finds that next gear and we see it against Edmonton, or he sort of continues floundering. A lot of that, I think, has to do with his line mates. But I do think guys like Anton Lundell, especially now with Brad Marchand in the lineup, that line itself has been, fantastic. So it's not as big of a blow. And then Gustav Forsling, we talked about him a bit earlier, but I really think he's got another gear. I'm not sure if he's, dealing with some sort of injury or something, but I think Gustav Forsling is going to be a guy to watch to see if he really steps up this series.
Yeah, there's so many articles I've written about Forsling because he was a Canucks draft pick way back when, and they traded him way too soon. But yeah, he's just such an amazing two-way defenseman, probably one of the top guys in the NHL. And yeah, when he's on, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And he has made some uncharacteristic ones, especially against, I think it was the Hurricanes. There was a few times it was like, that's not usually him. So, and that can't happen against the Oilers because they'll pounce on it and they'll score. I mean, that's especially if it's Draisaitl or McDavid or anything. So, yeah, we'll see how he kind of goes up because he's probably going to be the guy matched up against one of those guys for a lot of the time, although he has played against them before. So, Brian, what about you? Anything else you want to mention? Storylines, matchups, players to watch?
Home ice advantage is going to be fascinating to me. I think the feeling here in Edmonton last year was like if Game 7 had been at Rogers, that the Oilers would have won. And that was kind of like the big storyline all year. It's like, they got to get home ice advantage for the finals. And ironically, like they didn't have it in any of the first 3 series. And now they're going to finally get home ice for the first time in the final. But what I think is interesting about this is how incredibly good the Panthers have been on the road this playoffs.
Yeah.
Like I think, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what is it, 8-2 on the road, and I think it's 5-4 at home. And like their goal differential between the two is just astronomical. Like I think they've closed out all 3 series on the road. They've taken they didn't take game 1 against Toronto, but they've taken game 1 and 2 against in the first series and the third series. I mean, they've been so good on the road. I've been kind of fascinated what the difference is with this. So, there's so much has been made about the Oilers having the home ice advantage, and now they finally got it. And it's like, I'm really intrigued to see if this makes a difference at all. I have a buddy who works for the Oilers, and I was joking to him. It's like, do you guys actually have the option to maybe decline home ice? Because the Panthers have been so dynamite away, and they've been beatable at home.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they had on the flip side, like they closed out all 3 games on the road, but then they also had a chance to close out Toronto and had a chance to close out Carolina, both at home, and lost both those games.
Yeah.
So like that is really, really intriguing to watch me, and especially if like the Florida comes in here and takes game 1 and maybe takes game 2, which I think they're completely capable of, and it's going back to Miami up 2-0. Man, I don't know. So that to me is going to be something that's interesting to watch.
For sure. And that was the thing. It was like, if they had game 7 at home, they probably would have won the cup. Now you're looking at the other side, like, now we do have home ice, but the Panthers are good on the road. So like, now it might not matter. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what that makes a difference at all. If it does get to game 7 and that doesn't matter, we'll see. All right, let's talk. Let's do our quick fire here and start with X Factor. We've mentioned a lot of players, a lot of situations. We haven't mentioned special teams. That could be an X Factor in this because both teams have been good in probably both areas. So that might not be anything. But what do you think?
The others are still a bit of a dumpster fire on the PK.
Yeah, true. So. Yeah, they have been a little better, though, on it. Not as great as they were last year, which was just lights out. But that's been an interesting thing throughout. Yeah, so that could be an X factor. So Brian, I'll start with you. Any X factors you've got? Players, situations. What do you have?
No, that's just it. Is actually the PK for this team, because you're right. They have been a little bit better. Still not, I think. I mean, not anywhere near last year's level, but even not at a level that I think is acceptable. Acceptable might not be the right word for it, but at a level that you need to be to beat a team like the Panthers in a 7-game series. So we'll see what they can do. I think a big part of it has been a big part of why their PK has been a bit better, or the numbers have been a bit better, is they've played with. I've been impressed with their discipline, and this kind of speaks to I was talking about their overall poise and maturity, and just how they seem to be just playing with that kind of aura about them this year. So they stayed out of the box for the most part, and that's kind of been the best thing for their PK, is just not giving opportunity to the other team. So that to me is going to be a huge factor in this. That to me is the biggest X factor. And Florida, because they, Matt can tell you, they can make you pay, right? if you give that power play opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, what do you think? Is that the special teams on the other side? I mean, the Panthers maybe have that edge in special teams for X Factor, or you got something else there?
Yeah, I think I'm going to piggyback off of both of you guys here. I think with the Panthers, if they aren't able to get to their hockey game as quickly as possible, they resort to mind games. They resort to, goading players into retaliatory checks. And I think the refs kind of have tried to get a handle on that. I think I've seen more embellishment calls this playoffs than I think I've ever seen. And that kind of speaks to the Oilers' discipline also. If the Oilers can manage to, stay disciplined and not really fall into the Panthers' trap of, letting them get under their skin, I think that's really going to be a pretty big deciding factor. Just because if the Panthers aren't able to immediately dominate, that's sort of step 2 of their game plan. So I think X Factor is going to be the pests and how effectively or how ineffectively they're able to get under Edmonton's skin.
I'll say with X factors, I wrote an article on this. Was the two pests, the two mega pests that are in this series, and that's Corey Perry and Brad Marchand. These guys are not, for one, they're ageless. It seems like they're still playing hockey like that they're in their third, maybe not. I don't have to say 20s because Perry was a ridiculous scorer in his 20s, but they're both playing not like their age, and they're still ridiculously annoying to play against. Both are different type of players, but I think both of them are going to be X factors in this series because we all know Marchand he loves this time of year. This is where he thrives. And in a Panthers system, he just fits that identity so well. And of course, with Corey Perry, he's tied for the team leading goals with 7. And he's had a 19-goal season. It seems like at 40 years old, he's still playing some really good hockey. And maybe he'll actually finally break this weird trend of just being in the final and not winning it, because he's had quite a few now that he just can't seem to get that second cup. Marchand's only had one other time in the final, so he's not as maybe frustrated as maybe Perry is. But I really I want to see how that matchup goes, and they'll probably be on the ice together at some point. And we'll see how, I guess, who annoys the other team most. All right, let's talk about some keys to victory, I guess. Oilers will win the series and the cup if this happens, Brian.
If Stuart Skinner plays like he did in the last series, with the exception of a 5-minute stretch in game 1, if he gives them that level of goaltending, then I think that will be enough to just get them over the hump this year. So Stuart Skinner is the key.
Yeah, and that's a big one. He's got to, I don't know about outplay Bobrovsky, but be at his same level. I think that's all really he needs to do. Matt, what about the Panthers to get this back-to-back Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think Panthers will win if Barkov, Lundell et al. Are able to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl like they did last year. All
right, well, that's two very simple, and we'll see if that happens there. All right, final prediction, and we're gonna have 2 parts here. Who will win the Stanley Cup, and who will take home the Conn Smythe? Connor McDavid won last year, even though the Panthers won the cup. I didn't come out to accept it, as we all know. He has a really good chance of winning it this year, and if they do win the cup, he'll of course come out and accept it. Brian, who will win this? Is it the Oilers finally breaking this streak of Canada teams never winning the cup? And then who's going to win the Conn Smythe?
I'm going to say yes. And, I picked against the Oilers twice already in the playoffs. They proved me wrong both times. So, yeah, this is going to be – it is going to be an absolute battle. This is going to be a war, and it's going to take everything they have. I think it's going to go 7, which, just thinking about that, the fact that 2 teams in consecutive years could push each other to a 7 games in the final would be unbelievable. But I think that's really where these 2 teams are at. But I don't know. And I can't even give you like an actual tangible reason. It's just like a gut feeling almost.
Yeah.
What really fascinates me about this series is like, if you were to watch either one of these teams in a bubble and just watch and not be aware of anything else that's going on in hockey and just watch what they've done over the last 5 weeks, you'd be like, there's no way anyone's beating this team.
Yeah.
Because they both have just like had this thing where it's just, they've always risen to the occasion at the right moment. It doesn't seem to matter what the opposition does. They've had an answer, and they just got that like kind of team of destiny thing about them, right? Where it's just that, but something's got to give.
Yeah.
Both these teams can't win the cup. So I don't know. So it's, I wish I could give you something. It's really just a gut feeling that they're going to pull it out in 7, the Oilers, that is. And, it will have to be, I think McDavid is MVP. I think he'll win MVP just because he's McDavid, right? Like, as you mentioned, Corey Perry's tied for the team leading goals, but I don't think anyone's going to be voting for him for Conn Smythe. Conn Smythe Masters maybe, but yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned Perry, man. He's been unbelievable. He really deserves a shout out. So he's winning my seniors MVP for the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And he's actually he is older than me by number. I'm turning 40 this year as well. So I keep looking back at him, and it's like I say he's old, and I was like, hey, I'm turning 40. I better not see talking saying that. But in hockey, he is old. So and he's still playing like he's in his 30s. Really, I mean. Still making a difference for sure. Matt, what about you? Do you think is it the Panthers going to get back-to-back, or do you see the Oilers pulling this out, and who's winning the Conn Smythe?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think the Panthers end up taking it in 7. I do think the Oilers have a much better shot this year just because of the chips on their shoulders. It's I don't know how you can get any closer than last year's playoffs, last year's Stanley Cup Final, but I'm sure both of these teams will figure out a way. I wouldn't be surprised if it was single goal overtime win each game this series on behalf of either team.
So you got Conn Smythe.
Conn Smythe. I'm gonna say I would like to see Brad Marchand win it. I think especially with how clutch he is, if it does go into 7 games, and Marchand once again gets the series clinching goal, even if it's in overtime, regular time, whatever. I think Marchand, just because of how quickly he was able to come to Florida, fit right into the culture, despite being like the villain for the past several seasons, at least thorn in the side of the Panthers. I think it would sort of be kind of poetic justice to see him win it with Florida.
Sure, and he's been really productive. I think he's got 14 points in the playoffs so far, so that's pretty good. I think he's 3rd on the team in points on the Panthers. So yeah, he's not just been a spectator; he's been a very good, productive guy too.
I actually got a question for you, Matt. And this, like, we knew that Marchand was going to be so pivotal when they got him. Like when Florida traded for him, it's like, holy smoke! Can you believe they're loading up with him? But I agree. I think he might be their Conn Smythe top leading candidate. If they don't have Marchand, do they get back to this? Do they win these 3 series?
I think they definitely win Tampa Bay. I think he was good in that series, but I don't think he was a deciding factor as much as some other guys were. I don't think they beat Toronto without Brad Marchand. I think Brad Marchand is the ultimate Toronto Maple Leafs antidote. I think there's no way I still think they go 6-7 games, but no, without Marchand being there, I think Maple Leafs take that one.
Yeah, I think he was the X factor in that series for sure. And I'm sure Maple Leafs fans are like, no, don't trade. Oh, yeah, I thought we'd avoided him by Boston missing the playoffs. So he gets traded to the Panthers. And they're like, oh, we got to deal with this guy again. He definitely made a difference in that series. And it's great. I picked up the storyline, Perry and Marchand, veteran guys that have just been in the league for so long and have been so good in the playoffs and on teams for so long. They're icons, Boston, Marchand, and then Anaheim or Perry. And now they're on different teams and they could be winning their second cup with the different teams. So I just thought that was a kind of a cool story of these two guys. It's going to be interesting to see. As a
fellow, soon to be fellow member of the 40 Club, because I'm already there. You'll be joining me soon. I really appreciate what these older gentlemen are doing. Right? It's because I know you can appreciate it once you get to this age. That what it takes to be at that. It's not easy. We're all breaking down a little bit. So to see guys like Corey Perry and how old is Marchand now? He's
37.
Yeah. So, to see these guys doing what they're doing at the level they are at the age they are is pretty special.
Yeah. And like I say, Marchand's a little bit younger, and I think he's still shown this. I think he scored 30 goals not that long ago. So it's not like he's been far removed from as Perry has been.
I wouldn't be shocked if Marchand is age 40 is probably will be more impactful, maybe even than Corey Perry has been at age 40 or 39. He just turned 40 recently, but in that season. So
yeah, for sure. So that's two veterans. One of them is going to win their second cup. We'll see who it is in maybe as much as a couple weeks. And we're all saying that it's going to go 7 games. So it will be to the middle of June before we.
Have you made your pick yet?
Oh, did I?
No, you. I don't think it did.
I haven't. Okay, I've done another preview today too, so I totally forgot. I'm going Oilers in 7, and I got Connor McDavid with the Conn Smythe as well. So same thing as you, Brian. So I really think the Oilers have a little bit of an edge in that. Like I've mentioned it a few times, their depth. I think their defense is going to make a huge difference in this series because I think that was their weakness against the Panthers in the past, is that they just couldn't move the puck as well and just got stuck with that forecheck. And you need to move the puck quickly against the Panthers because they get in there so quick. You need to be able to move it. And that's something I think is a big difference in like their full defense now. There's no real weakness in guys that they all can move the puck between all 3 pairings. So, and I mean, you could say maybe Brett Kulak is the less, but he's still pretty good at moving the puck as a defenseman. So I think that's going to make a difference. It's very slight edge, and that's why it's going 7. And I really think I'll make an extra prediction. It's going to be an overtime game 7.
Man.
So,
well, you're one of the historians. Like, when was the last time a Stanley Cup Final went to overtime game 7? I don't think it's happened in my lifetime. And like I was just saying, I've been around a minute. I
don't, off the top of my head, it's not coming with what it is. But was the last time the Oilers, not before last year, but when they went against the Hurricanes, did they lose
game 7 didn't go to overtime.
So I mean, I really don't know. Then I don't know.
I don't.
The Cup won in overtime.
I'm sure it's probably happened, like between the Habs and the Leafs in 1950 something or rather. But
actually, it might be the Blackhawks. That Patrick Kane goal that they weren't sure went in. That might have been the last time.
That might be it. And what game was that?
I don't think it was a game 7, but it was an overtime Stanley Cup win. But like for a game 7, I don't know. I don't know what that one.
I mean, there's the infamous 1999 Buffalo Dallas as well too, but that was game 6, I want to say, right? So
yeah. So we'll see. That probably won't happen. That's a pretty rarity, but that would be a fun one. We'll see how it goes. I think there's going to be an overtime in this series. I think there's maybe a few of them. As much as everyone doesn't want to see that, especially if you're out east, of how late it'll go. But we'll see how it goes. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Brian, for coming on. Our last preview this year. We'll see if next year we'll have another one. I don't know. We'll have 3 times with the same matchup, but we'll see who wins the cup this time around. Make sure to check out everything at hockeyriders.com. Like I mentioned, tons of articles already out there because there's such this big gap. There's lots of content of previewing this series. Probably everyone tired of previewing this series already. But thanks for sticking around and watching another video previewing it. We'll see who wins it. But until our next one, which will be next year, we'll see you next time.